This is the all-new Toyota Land Cruiser, and Toyota says that it's tougher, smarter, and better than ever before. But here's the catch. They shrunk it, they took out the V8, and they made it a hybrid. So today we're going to test it and see if it's actually worth this $70K price tag. We're going to see what it's like to live with on a daily basis. And did Toyota possibly ruin the Land Cruiser name? Grab a coffee, stick around, and we're going to break it down, no cap as always. Let's get into it.
She said, stop it. You always let me down when I want you. I can't help it. Girl, I can't let you forget me. Won't let you forget me. Girl, I take back all the lies and the
So if you didn't already know, the Toyota Land Cruiser is insanely popular. And they're particularly popular in harsh climates, in areas that get a lot of snow and tough weather conditions like Colorado. And if you go out there, you know that because you'll see them everywhere. You see GX460s as well and 4Runners. They're literally everywhere. And that's for good reason. And the reason is because they're insanely reliable, and they also are known to have an incredible full-time four-wheel drive system. So what that means is they can pretty much get you anywhere you want to go, and they're also pretty much guaranteed to get you home, which a lot of vehicles can't say, and I'm looking at you, Jeep. So essentially, the Land Cruiser is really just known for utility over fancy crap. And it's not only utility that they're known for, they're also known for luxury, as we've seen in the United States in the LX570. And for all of these reasons, they have a huge following among enthusiasts like me and you. And when I see a really well-maintained mint Land Cruiser, I geek out every time. I actually know every single house on my block that has a nice, well-maintained Land Cruiser. And I walk the block sometimes just hoping I can see the guy that owns it and go, hey man, nice Land Cruiser. Now when I say that, I'm talking about a real Land Cruiser, of course. For those of you that don't know, this new Land Cruiser here is actually part of a different section of the Land Cruiser family tree. It's actually a Land Cruiser Prado. So the next time your buddy starts bragging about his new Land Cruiser, just hit him with a, hey man, you know it's a Prado, right? Now, whoa, I know. Before you get all torqued, the Prado is still a Land Cruiser. So let's not get all bent out of shape here. It's still very much a real Land Cruiser. It's just a little bit different from the Land Cruiser name that we've known in the United States for years. You see, historically in the US, the international Land Cruiser Prado has been to the GX460, as the real Land Cruiser in the US has been to the LX570. These are the larger variants typically when we see the word Land Cruiser. And now the Land Cruiser in the Toyota lineup is to the same as the Lexus GX550. So the Land Cruiser in America is now the Prado, which is similar to the Prado or the GX550. Now I know the Prado and those things are not exactly the same. They come a little bit different, but they're largely built on the same platform and they share a lot. But I know they're not exactly the same. So now in the US, we're flipping all that on its head. So we've kind of like mixed up the family tree a little bit. And I'm not sure where any of that leaves the Toyota 4Runner, but we'll see when I get it in a test. All that to say, this thing is still a Land Cruiser, guys. And I actually have somehow really grown to like this thing over the last week. I think I like this better than the GX550. So I'm going to tell you more about that. Let's jump into the review now. And I'll tell you exactly how it's been driving this thing for a week. I mean, come on, guys. This thing on the exterior looks pretty sick. I'm a pretty big fan of how it looks. I actually didn't like how it looked before I got it in person and got my hands on it. I used to see them on the road and think, not really a big hit with me. But I gotta say, the smoky blue color that it pulled up in here, it's like this cool smoky blue color. And I really like the way that it's like a kind of a flat blue paint. It's got the two-tone white roof, which I just think looks different. It stands out on the road. Up front, you have these really nice LED bright white headlights with the yellow Rigid Industries fog lights, which I really do like. You have the running board here, which in my opinion is in a little bit of an awkward spot getting in and out of the vehicle. I don't really step on it. It's kind of a weird step for me to do that, although that looked pretty smooth. I've been finding myself kind of doing this where I skip over it, and I'm about 5'10". Maybe my wife likes it, I don't know. You got gloss black door handles, which I think look pretty cool, pretty modern. You also have gloss black on the mirrors. Coming around the rear, you got new redesigned taillights. I mean, everything's redesigned. You also have the pop glass in the rear, like the GX460, which I like. Gloss black Toyota Heritage badge on the back, and you have the tow hitch receiver back there as well. It tows 6,000 pounds. And as my son likes to say, who's 2 years old, it's got big tires on it. 18-inch alloys, and they're wrapped in 265 Dunlop Grand Treks here, which I think are mud and snow rated. Yeah, they're mud and snow rated. So at least you get that. I think those tires are really more geared for on-road quietness and performance, but overall, I think they look meaty enough on the vehicle. They look decent, so I'm a fan. All right, let's jump into the interior. I've seen a lot of mixed opinions on the Land Cruiser. A lot of people are really talking about the interior in a negative light. And I got to be honest with you guys, I think sometimes these car reviewers out there, these professional, big hotshot car reviewers get so caught up in driving their supercars that they don't realize what regular cars look like. I mean, I jumped in this from my 4Runner, and I think the interior is really, really nice. My 4Runner build quality interior is great, but there's nothing wrong with the build quality in this interior. I've had no issues, maybe a little bit more creaks and rattles. There's more plastic in interiors these days, but that's to be expected in literally every car. So overall, I think this is actually pretty good. Is it $70,000 good? I don't know about that, but it is good. And I was surprised because I was expecting not to like it. And me and my wife both tried the GX 550 about 2 weeks ago, and I drove that thing around, and I would think that I'd love the Lexus interior much better than the Toyota interior. And I have to say that you know, the Lexus interior feels a little bit more fancy, but I like the ergonomics and the layout and the comfort of this Toyota interior, this Land Cruiser interior, better than the GX 550 that I had. So I was really surprised by that. The way, you can almost tell that a different team worked on it. So the way that it's been laid out, the ergonomics, when you have your hand on the shifter, you have access to the full climate control, all physical buttons for the climate control, which I really like, heated, cooled seats, heated steering wheel, all of your HVAC controls are here, your drive modes are right here. Everything just feels within reach, which I really appreciate, and it's pretty easy to find. Not only that, but the infotainment also seems to be working really well. Super easy for me and my wife's phones to connect, and there was no confusion between the two. I'll show the infotainment here, but it's, you know, it's the new Toyota system, the same that's in, you know, all the other Toyotas, but I think it's a little bit better and improved than the one that's in my wife's 2023 RAV4 Limited. Moving on to the seats, I think the seats are probably one of the best parts about this Land Cruiser. I really like this brown leather Softex. My wife said the same thing jumping in. I mean, it's really attractive looking and it's really comfortable. I think these seats are actually a little bit more cushy than the GX. They kind of hug my body personally a little bit better than the GX did. But I think that this brown leather interior is actually really, really nice. There's brown accents on the door over here. You also have brushed aluminum for the handles. Pretty nice quality feeling buttons. These buttons almost feel like the buttons out of the Lexus, so you feel like you get a little bit of that premium touch. You got grab handles up here on both sides, grab handles in the rear. Oh, and most importantly, we're going to move to the rear in a second. You have the overhead HVAC vents added back in here, and my GX for some reason didn't have that. I know some of the other ones do, I think, but overhead HVAC vents are a hack if you have kids. You're going to love them. All right, let's jump into the back real quick. All right, so jumping into the rear seat here, sitting behind my own seating position and having a car seat here with my son's little Warmy sitting there in it. We call that guy Warmy. Anyway, it's pretty comfortable, man. I got plenty of leg room. I probably got a couple inches in front of my knees. I'm not the biggest dude in the world, but you know, it's got a couple inches there. Again, I mentioned the overhead HVAC vents. These things are awesome. So they're, you know, if you set it up right, it's blowing right on your face in the rear, which is a really nice luxury down here in Georgia on a hot summer day. These seats that I'm sitting on here, again, super comfortable. They do have a full tumble forward feature, so you can tumble it forward, which makes the back flatter. This has the battery in it, so I'm not sure if it goes completely flat. I will double check for you. You also have your own nice infotainment, or your own climate control back here, which is like a digital climate control, so you can set it to auto, you can change the fan speed, the temperature, which is really nice to have that. And you have two USB-C ports as well as a regular 12-volt charger back here. Not only that, but you also get the JBL sound system in the back. You have a nice little tweeter here next to your head. And I gotta say, the sound system in this vehicle has actually been surprisingly good. It's better than every other JBL sound system that I've tested in the Toyota to date, including my 2023 Tundra Platinum and my wife's 2023 RAV4 Limited. So this sound system is definitely a step up. I will say that. All right, let's jump into the back real quick and I'll show you the cargo. All right, last but not least, you have the rear automatic cargo tailgate. As I mentioned, you already have the pop glass. And the first thing that you notice when you come into the cargo area in the rear is that you have this big, giant step up for this battery. Now, it does take away a little bit of storage space back here, but with that said, there is still a good amount of storage space, and I don't think you'll get a completely flat lay when you tumble them forward because you do have the battery here. But with that said, pretty good amount of storage. You do also have a full 12-volt outlet back here, or I'm sorry, not 12-volt. You have a 120-volt outlet back here. That's a regular, 3-prong outlet. You also have USB-Cs back here in the rear, and there is quite a good amount of room. So not too bad of a layout here. All right, here we go. Let's talk about this all-new powertrain. And, if you want to shed a tear for the 5.7 V8, that's fine. I already have. Oof. That's a heavy hood. We got no hood dampers. That's a no for me, dog. I wish there was hood dampers on this thing. So here you have it. You have a vertically mounted 2.4 liter 4-cylinder turbo hybrid. Puts out 326 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. That's a crazy amount of torque, guys. 465 pound-feet of torque. That's like one of the big standout numbers with these iForce Max motors that they're putting out. They have tons of torque, and when you drive it, that's the first thing that you feel. So this engine, is very different from the previous generation. It's not as smooth as the 5.7. It's not as smooth as the 4.6 and the GX460. It's not as smooth as the 4-liter in the 4Runner, but it does feel quicker than all of those motors combined. Driving around town, I think this thing is really peppy. That's the word that I would use to describe it. It's rumbly and peppy. It's kind of got this visceral feel to it. One thing that I don't like in most hybrids is that you do feel the engagement of the hybrid battery and the disengagement and the transition to the internal combustion engine. So you do feel that, but it is rumbly and it's kind of a little bit nostalgic for me. A lot of people criticize this, but for me, I had a 2011 WRX that was a very loud, rumbly 4-cylinder. This reminds me of that in some weird way. You can hear the turbo when you get on it, which I really like. So it's just kind of cool to hear, turbo noises coming out of something like this when you're driving it. It just feels fun and peppy, kind of like a big go-kart around town. A lot of YouTubers out there criticize it and said, oh, this thing is terribly slow. Don't listen to them, guys. I think a lot of those guys, as I mentioned, have their head in the clouds. They're too busy, sipping macchiatos and driving their Carrera GTs around. I think they forget what real cars feel like. This thing is not slow. This is a pretty good vehicle, pretty good powertrain. I see why Toyota would put it in it. Totally makes sense. With that said, though, it's fun to drive, but fuel economy has definitely been lacking. Fuel economy in this thing is like, right now I think my odometer is sitting at 13 miles per gallon. When they handed it off to me at my house, I think I was at 17 miles per gallon. And it's rated for like 21 to 24 or something like that, city to highway. So I don't know why it's not getting that. It's a brand new vehicle. It's only got 2,000 miles on it. Maybe that's why it still needs to go through the break-in period and they'll start getting better MPG. And mine's low because I've been ripping on it doing some B-roll around town that you'll see in the video. But yeah, for whatever reason, the MPGs are not that great. I know they transitioned to the battery for emissions, which are not necessarily the same as miles per gallon and fuel economy, but they are correlated. So you kind of have to acknowledge that and ask the question why they're doing that. The last thing that I'll touch on is reliability, because Toyota Land Cruiser is known for reliability. This thing should be bomb-proof. That's what we want. That's what the following of Land Cruisers want. If it's not bomb-proof, I don't really want it. And that still stands. But the reality is that I don't know if this thing is going to be bomb-proof. There have been some mixed opinions about this. We've seen some things coming out. We know that, there's been some other issues with Toyota's 6-cylinder hybrid powertrain and regular ICE 6-cylinder in the Tundras. We'll see with this motor. I'm not going to speak on reliability just yet, but if it is as reliable as the previous generation Land Cruiser, I would have no problem driving this thing around. I would just love to see it be just as reliable. All right, well, that's my thoughts on the engine. Let's get it out on the road and I'll show you how it drives. Let's give it some gas. Yeah, it gets up and goes. It's nothing but torque when you step on it. That's something that you notice right away. 465 pound-feet of torque, you definitely feel it. It's not fast once it gets above 60, 70. It's kind of laggy at that speed. But from 0 to 70, this thing rips. I really enjoyed driving it around town. My wife enjoyed driving it around town. It's one of those things that I didn't have high expectations because all these other YouTubers kept saying it was really slow. And it doesn't feel fast, but it's definitely peppy around town. It feels pretty good. The brake pedal feel is a little bit soft, a little softer than I would expect in something like this. The new Toyotas, the brake pedals don't seem to be that soft, but this one, for some reason, it just feels a little bit numb. Steering feel, it's a fully electronic steering rack, so you're not getting any true road feel in this thing, but you do hear the 4-cylinder in this thing growl and rumble, and you feel it on the steering wheel a little bit sometimes. Again, I don't mind it. I think it's pretty decent. I kind of enjoy it. So, it's whatever. You kind of get used to it and it's kind of fun to drive. I find it a little bit more fun to drive than the GX550 that I had, actually, which was surprising to me. One other thing that I'll mention is this TNGAF platform in these, I find to be a little bit jittery. The TNGAF platform is a new platform that Toyota is using across all of its vehicles for its modular, and I guess it's for efficiency in the manufacturing process so they can use it across multiple vehicles. I find that platform to be a little bit stiff, and I know they designed it to be a little bit more stiff, but I find it to be just a little bit too stiff, where it feels a little jittery sometimes. But I guess that is what contributes to the better handling and the more responsiveness that you get out of these vehicles, because they are quite a bit more responsive than the previous generation Toyotas in turns and corners. They feel a little bit more like unibody SUVs, which is what they're competing against. And for all of you out there that don't know the difference, unibody SUVs handle very differently. That's like an X5, for example. You know, those sporty SUVs are unibody, meaning that the body is connected to the frame of the car. It's all one piece, where these are body on frame, which give you advantages off-road, but the frame of the vehicle is separated by the suspension to the actual cabin that you're sitting in. So body on frame is often quieter and, you know, more cushy driving around town. So just something to keep in mind when you're looking at these vehicles, but it does handle pretty good for a body on frame vehicle as far as those things go. But I find this platform to just be a little bit jittery, and I'm nitpicking, but that is something that I notice. It does, as I mentioned, it handles really well in turns. It's very responsive. The steering wheel, the steering feel, there's not a lot of feedback, but it's responsive. We were doing some B-roll on this thing, driving around pretty quick, and you can throw it into a turn, and for what it is, you're surprised by how well it's holding in that turn. The 4Runner is not like that I own for my full-time daily driver, so it's a little bit different there. Lastly, the driver assist features in this they don't seem to be nearly as intrusive as the GX550 that I had. The GX550, I did like them sometimes, but sometimes they were a little bit overpowering. The driver assist features in this just seem to be a little bit less willing to step in when I'm driving. I haven't even felt them. Maybe they're turned off. I should probably check that out, but I haven't really felt them much. It's been really nice. So when you're driving around, it's just one of those things that, you know, it's not constantly yelling at you. And I also think this vehicle drives, just in general, for a general term, it drives smaller than the GX550. I think it is a little bit smaller, maybe, but not much. I'm not really sure. Should probably check the numbers on that, but it drives smaller, it feels smaller. So I think that's one of those things that makes it a little bit more comfortable for everybody to drive around town. Particularly, I know my wife just really enjoyed driving around town. She wants one of these in black now. So overall, I would say the driving experience is really good. If you're looking at getting one of these, just give it a test drive. You might really like it. Other things when you're driving, I just find the infotainment to be pretty intuitive. I'm pretty used to Toyota infotainment, but it's pretty intuitive. All the HVAC controls, as I mentioned, are at your fingertips. When you're driving, you feel like you're kind of in this cockpit in the Land Cruiser, where I didn't quite feel exactly the same in the GX550. I think it just felt a little bit bigger. You had to reach for things. Everything is like within reach in here in a nice way. I really just have found it to be way more comfortable than I really thought it was going to be. I actually really like this vehicle, and I'm not going to give away too much, so that's pretty much how it is driving. Very comfortable, fun vehicle to drive. I don't find, you hear that 4-cylinder? I kind of like it. You can hear a little turbo. Let's see if I can get a little turbo sound for you. Yeah, you can't hear it right now, but sometimes you get a little bit of turbo noise in here, which I like. So it definitely, you can have some fun with this thing. It's a peppy little guy, like I like to say. So anyway, that's it. Really fun vehicle to drive. Let's jump into the final thoughts, and I will tell you what I think about this thing overall if you're thinking about buying it. All right, guys, well, that about wraps us up here. Let me give you my final thoughts. So when it comes to the new Land Cruiser, I really didn't think that I was going to love it. Turns out I do love it. And here's a new segment to the channel. Is it wife approved? And I got to tell you, this is wife approved. She drove it. She loved it. So Land Cruiser, wife approved. And some of my other final thoughts are, it's better than a Bronco. If you're going to go out and spend your hard-earned money, this is $70K. Broncos are also pretty expensive. I like how this drives on the daily better than a Bronco. I'm sorry, I just do. I think it looks cooler. I just think it has a little bit more of a cool factor to it. For me, better than a Bronco. When it comes to everything else about the vehicle, the hybrid powertrain, the reliability, I think those things are a little bit of a risk right now. You know, I don't know if the powertrain is going to be super reliable. It's really hard to say. But I can say that driving it, I've really enjoyed it. The interior is super comfortable, plenty of room for the family. The engine's a little bit fun. It's a little peppy guy. You know, I call it the little peppy guy. It's been fun around town. So overall, if you're looking to buy a, comfortable daily driver that you could also take off-road, or maybe also put some big tires on and go off-roading a little bit and get you from point A to point B, but also take you off the trail on the weekends, I think this could be a great choice for you. The question is it worth 70 grand? They start at 55, I think, so you could get something a little cheaper, but overall, I think 70 grand is a little bit steep, but maybe you could pick up a slightly cheaper model. With that said, overall, the new Land Cruiser has impressed me much more than I thought it would impress me. So I'd encourage you to go check it out and test drive it. And guys, if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel. Please give this video a thumbs up. Really appreciate it. Trying to make more videos for you guys. And until next time, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Girl, I take back all the lies in the side, girl, I try.